Hello guys, this is Harkirat here. Today I'll be talking about how to install LAMP stack using Ubuntu server on VirtualBox, and then Param will tell us how to install mean stack. Mean stack stands for Mongo, Express, Angular, Node. So now first of all let's talk about how to install LAMP stack. First let's go to VirtualBox. Now first of all let's set some preferences. We will create one network adapter. Network adapter is an interface between a computer and an internet connection. As you can see, I've already created two host only networks. So we will use VBox Net 0. I'm not gonna create once again. It will take a lot of time. So we are using VBox Net 0. Okay. Now let's create one new server by the name of MSRIT. We are allocating the size 512 MB as it is recommended. Now it will create a virtual hard drive. Create, continue, continue, create. Now you can see the server has been created. Now change some settings. First of all, we will connect it to network host adapter. Enable it. Now connect to host only adapter. Now the server is connected to VBox Net 0. We will change the storage also. We will mount the ISO file of Ubuntu which we want to install. Ubuntu and OK. So now let's start the server. So now the server has been started, as you can see, and the installation process starts now. So we will select English. Yes, we want to install Ubuntu server. The installation process is like very large, so it will take a lot of time. We have to be patient with it. Enter, enter. We don't want to detect it. No. Enter, enter. So now the process has been started. Okay, so here, as you can see, we have to select one of the network interfaces. We will select the Ethernet 0 connection. Enter. Okay, so let's talk about Ubuntu server. Ubuntu server is not basically a graphical user interface. It's a terminal user interface. It is fast and efficient. It is production based. Okay, so here also like hostname I'm giving Ubuntu as well. Full name for the user, let it be MSRIT. Continue. Username for your account, I'm giving MSRIT. Password also, let's choose MSRIT. For verification, yeah, let's use weak password. We are not encrypting the home directory as it will take a lot of time to retrieve the files from the server side. So that's why we are not encrypting the home directory. No. So we have already talked about the Ubuntu server a little bit. Okay, so we will talk about LAMP stack just in a while. First, let's see this installation. Okay, so now the time zone is correct, Asia and Calcutta. So yes. So now it's detecting all the hardware. For partitioning method, we will use this first method, guided use entire disk. Yes, 10.7 GB hard disk. Yes, of course we want to write the changes to disks. Yes. To say now let's talk about something about LAMP stack. LAMP stands for Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. It is basically used for web development. Even uh, Meanstack is also used for web development. Meanstack is basically a JavaScript web development run on Google V8 machine, and it is installed on top of the Ubuntu server. It's installing the system. So let's wait for a while. I'm pausing it. So now we don't want to give any proxy information, so blank, continue. It's now the files are being retrieved. It will take a lot of time, so I will resume after this part. So now all the files have been retrieved, and now it is just installing the softwares. And no, we don't want any automatic updates, we don't want any interference, so enter. Okay, in this one we will select OpenSSH server for our use, the LAMP server, the Samba file server, which is like used to transfer server files, and virtual machine host. Continue. Now this will install all the softwares. As you can see, the files are being retrieved. I'm not giving any password for MySQL root user. No, we are not giving any passwords. Continue. It is just preparing and installing all the software files. Let's resume it after it's done. We don't want to give any password, so just continue. Let's resume it again. So now, as you can see, it is trying to install the grub bootloader. Grub bootloader is basically, it initializes the installation of Ubuntu server which you're already installing. So yes, we want to install the grub bootloader. Yes. And it's installing the grub bootloader. Section is complete. Yes, let's reboot the system. Continue. Now, as you can see, the server is rebooting. Ubuntu. So Ubuntu login is MSRIT. MSRIT the password is, and now it is ready to use. Now first let's run a command sudo nano etc network interfaces. This command is used to set the static IP address of the server so that we can run the Ubuntu server from a local machine. Now let's run it. Sudo password for MSRIT is MSRIT. So now here we will set the static IP address. As auto eth1 iface eth1 inet static address. You can give any address, like now I'm giving 192.168.56.107 and the net mask is 255.255.255.0 and now we will exit while okay. So now we have set the static IP address and now we will reboot the machine. Sudo reboot. So now it's rebooting. Ubuntu. Ubuntu login is MSRIT. Password is also MSRIT. Now we will open the terminal for secure shell login. For we will SSH into our server, SSH MSRIT at 192.168.56.107. Password is MSRIT. So now we have secured into our server and now we will change the host. Sudo vi etc hosts. Oh sorry, instead of sudo I have given sudi, so I can change it to sudo msrit. Yes, so here, so now we can give any, like any site we want, insert and like 192.168.56.107 and we can give www.msrit.com. So now let's come out of the file. We can even show like how will our site look. cd where www. So now you can see as there is one HTML file. So let's open it. ls As you can see, there is one index.html file. So let's open it. So this is how our file will look, which we have given, msrit.com. So now let's log into our local machine. So now let's again change some hosts, sudo vi. The same procedure will follow here also. Password will be different here, and now we have entered, and now so here also we will give our we will alias the IP address and give the site name 192.168.56.107 and www.msrit.com. So now let's open our site www.msrit.com. So as you can see, this is the default page, this is the opening page, and now Param will tell us the usage installation of MeanStack.
Hello everyone. Harkirat has already explained to us what is Linux server and how do we install Linux server and how do we configure our files, network files and interface files to start off with web development. So today I'm going to continue with what is known as MeanStack. MeanStack is basically a framework which helps you to develop websites rapidly. So in MeanStack, M stands for Mongo. MongoDB is basically a NoSQL database. What it does is you can store data in whichever manner you want to. It is basically very popular with big data and how big data can be stored in a database. Now, how do you actually start off with MongoDB is by using Mongoose. Mongoose is a framework which actually objectifies the models in your MongoDB so that they can be efficiently used by Node.js. Now let's go on to see what is Node.js. Node.js is a server-side JavaScripting language. So what it actually does is helps you to create servers with writing JavaScript, and it runs on the Google's JavaScript runtime environment. Now we can also learn about Express. So Express is a framework which again modularizes and objectifies Node.js. Angular is a one-page website development tool which is provided by Google. So let's start off with our Node.js development, and on that journey learn about MeanStack. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to nodejs.org and install Node on my system. So once the Node.js file is downloaded, you just click on the install and you can check whether it's installed or not. As you can see, I have already installed it on my system by typing node-v, which tells you what is the version of your node. Now let us create what is the most important and the famous thing about Node.js is it helps you create a server very easily. So let's just create a server by using Node.js. So let's just create a directory, say test2. Let's move into that directory and create I'll say index dot, let me name the file as index.js. Now in this file we are going to write our Node.js code. So let's first start by requiring and telling that we are going to have an HTTP request. So what require is basically like including this library. So we are going to tell that we need HTTP now. We are going to use this object to create a server, and we're going to write a callback function. So what a callback function is, it's a type of functional programming that is very famous in JavaScript, which actually helps you to call a function only when a particular job is done. So this function will be called, and what we're going to send in the result is a 200, saying that okay, you have reached this server and everything is fine. And the type of data that we are going to be sending is a content type is a plain text. And I'm going to end this by saying okay, send hello world. Now how do we tell it at what port it has to listen to? So I write dot listen on port 13772, let's just say 1377, and on the IP 0.0.1. Let's just save it. And how do we run a Node application? We type the command node and index.js, that's a file name. So we're going to type node index.js, and as you can see, our server is running on this address. So let us just go to the browser and let us see what this returns. So as you can see, it has returned hello world, and when we see over here that the server is running, and what we have is we have returned a hello world. So the server is working perfectly. So this, as using Node.js, you can create a server in just 4 lines of code. So next, let us talk about Express. How would you actually use Express on Node.js? Let me just end the server. So as I said earlier, Express is a framework which is developed on Node so that we can modularize the code. So what we are going to do is we are going to install Express by typing the command npm. So let me talk about npm before that. So what is npm? npm stands for Node Package Manager. It helps you to download and manage all the packages that are required to run Node.js. So I'm going to have npm install -g to make it global, Express gen. This is going to install Express in mine. Okay, so it's telling me I have not given root access. I'm going to write sudo the error is because I was not privileged to install this. So sudo is letting me to do that. So it's going to install the packages and all the dependencies that we require to run Express. So it's going to take some time for this. So now you can see all the Express packages and the other dependencies are installed. Now let's start developing our application using Express. So for this I am going to prefer an IDE which is known as WebStorm. This is developed by JetBrains, which helps us to write the projects and manage them very easily. So let's just go to file, new project, and say what type of project do you want. There are different types of projects that you can choose from. I would say Node.js and an Express app. Name the project as MSRIT. Okay, Let's say, okay, so what is the template I'm going to be using? There are three types. There's Hogan, EGS, and Jade. So I prefer Jade, and the version of the Express that I want is 4.12.1. I'm going to say okay. So it's going to start building all the files that we require to build our application. As you can see, it's going to npm and actually installing all the packages that we want to start off with our Express application. Now it's asked us whether we want to configure our Node.js modules and download it from the internet. I'm going to say yes. So it's going to download all the libraries that are required to run Node.js. Okay, so it's already done. So now you can see we have the basic Express structure, which is divided into three things. We have views, we have routes, and we are going to have one more thing known as models. So views is where your template is stored. So this is the index template. So this is the basic Jade layout, which tells, it's like having classes and inheriting those classes. So you are going to say I have layout. This is the basic thing which has your HTML document, and you're going to extend that an index and error page. And we have routes which help where we are going to actually write our APIs. So we have index.route, we have public, which is we are going to show images and the remaining things, and this is the node module. So as you can see, it already has the packages known as which are required for our build for us to build a project, and this is the bin which has the dub. So let me explain each and every folder. So what does www contain? It's telling, okay, I want an application which is going to require this particular part, and this part is again stored on over here, which is app.js. So it's going to extract it from there. We have a debugger, and as I showed you initially how to start an HTTP server. So it's asking for an HTTP object, and it's going to also tell on which port we are going to use. So we say we are going to use it on port 3000. Now let us go to our index.js where our routes are written. So let us write a route. So what a route does is it's basically forming an API. So I'm going to say router.get, and I'm going to say, if I type msrit, and I'm going to give a callback function now, which has two parameters, a request and a response, and next to handle the errors. Now I'm going to say when I'm going to hit msrit, I'm going to render in index, which is a file over here, template, and I'm going to say give the title as a JSON object as msrit. Let's just do this. And what is module.export doing is telling, hey, export the object. So wherever it's being required, just call it. So that will be in app.json. So we are given two routes. Let us give us, so it's saying go to either this or go to users. So let us just start our application. Okay, so where will it actually go? You will go to index and say, okay, we are going to get title from our routes, and this will be replaced. So first let's just try going to the root of that. So I'm going to start this. I'm going to go to localhost 3000. So it's saying Express, welcome to Express, because we have given the basic thing. Now if I write msrit in this, msrit, and see, that's what it's going to print, because that is what we are sending to our index file. And as you can see over here, initially when I gave to go to the root route, it sent 200, so the response is good. Then next time again when I went to msrit for the first time, it sent 200, and the next time it's going to give us as 304 because it has not been modified. Now how do we actually integrate this with MongoDB? The first thing that we're going to do is download MongoDB. So there's this option over here saying download MongoDB, and once MongoDB is done, I'm going to go to my WebStorm project directory. CD WebStorm project directory and go. Okay, let me show it to you in the Finder. So over here, as you can see, I'm going to go to MongoD and go to bin then and start my MongoDB. So I'll just type MongoD. So our MongoDB server has started. So now let's create a new folder known as model, a directory which is going to store our models. So in this models is where we actually write the schema of our database. So let me go to internal.js. So I'm going to say I'm going to require mongoose and the schema. Let's just make a new schema if where new, and the schema is usually represented in the key value pair. So I'm going to say it's of type string. And what I'm going to do with this new schema is I'm going to tell key, hey, this is a new schema, and every schema needs to be converted into a model. I'm going to write mongoose.model, convert the schema, let's say MSRIT new. So we have made a database schema and how it's going to look. Now where do we actually call these things? The mongoose module is stored in the node underscore module, and that is where it's required from. Then you can go to your index.js or internal services and actually call this thing. So first line says you're going to require mongoose. Second line is telling key, okay, you're going to require an object of that model. So I'm going to say msrit equals mongoose dot model, and I'm going to require msrit. So now I can actually write a query of what I want and write functions of what I want to do with that database and call those functions in my index.js. So that was the tutorial about installing a Linux server and configuring it, configuring its host and network interfaces file, and getting started with web development using MeanStack, and use like how do you create a server with Node, use Express on top of it, and then store the data in MongoDB and use Mongoose to actually access that data. So thank you.